Alright, guys. Let's do a little role play here. You ask, so, how is Steelrising? Is it any good? Is it worth picking up? Well, I'm here to answer that question. Is it worth picking up? And with that, I have a resounding, maybe, as an answer. And I think that that's kind of reasonable for most content, because really, it's up to your personal tastes, what you like. I think the best way to understand what this game is, and what it isn't, is to play the intro. I've gotten a decent way in, I fought a few bosses, so I have a clue as to what's going on in it. But let's just start a new game, and take a look at what the intro is kind of like. I'm going to skip past the first cutscene, but the basic idea is you belong to Maria Antoinette. You're a robot, or an automaton of some kind of mechanical-based, kind of clockwork, I should say, clockwork-based, very steampunk aesthetic. It seems that the palace is being guarded by a bunch of robots, and Marie Antoinette does not like that. She's terrified. She wants to get out, but she can't escape, obviously, on her own, because she's a human, not a mechanical creation that can apparently withstand normal bullets and other things. So the premise is okay. The storyline starts out, there's some dialogue when you run into other characters. I've only done a little bit of the game, so of course, I don't know the full extent of that. But it does exist. It doesn't really seem like it's going to be a story-based thing, though, where you get to choose your dialogue, really. The only dialogue I was presented with, I just kind of went through all three options, and then the dialogue ended. I could pick which option they talked about first, but that's not really what I would call roleplay. So if you're looking for roleplay or deep lore, I don't really think this is going to be that game. Nor should it be. It's a Souls game, so I mean, you know, it has a certain purpose. Let's look at character customization. So first, it's pretty limited. You can change your kind of base skin color. This just changes your lower body. You can see, like, I can have darker tones. I can have lighter tones. It's decent in terms of allowing you to be a few different looks. I appreciate it, at least. You can have a few different hairstyles. They're all a little bit, like, frizzy. At the top, so you can kind of see, like, that bits of frizz. I kind of dislike that, but I guess it's supposed to look like the wigs of the day. I'm not crazy about it, but, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah. I mean, if you like your high society wigs that were there, I guess, to stop people from showing they were balding, they're there. But you know what? I'll pick the same one I picked for my other character just because it's the one I can stand. And I tend to like buns in the back like that, which is why my character has that as well. My VTube character, or my, I guess, reaction image character, PNG tube. You have various types of faces. They have different kind of, like, feels to them. You can see. I think it's nice. You know, there's a nice mixture. But yeah, it definitely feels like you're not really meant to customize a lot, because of course it's pretty limited. So it's okay for what it is, but I wouldn't say that you're gonna get, you know, a lot of options. I pretty much just showed you everything there. So it's all right. You know, at least it's there. It's better than not having anything. Now you pick your starting class, and last time I picked Dancer, which has this nice, like, fan shield and is agility focused. The main thing that seems to happen when you're agility focused is you attack a few times, it builds up this, like, weakened state, and then you get to do, like, a massive hit of damage, which tends to one-shot normal enemies, or, you know, at least does significant damage even to heavy enemies. It's decent. It has a little bit more stamina. I felt it was pretty fun. I'll show some gameplay from that later. Let's take a look, though, have at something more physically heavy so I can see what they do. Alchemical stuff seems pretty cool, too. They have weapons that basically freeze enemies or burn enemies or put effects on enemies. It seems pretty useful. There's also something called knockdown, where you can knock enemies down. It's kind of hard to say what is going to be the best to showcase this, so that's why I'm going to probably switch between different characters and kind of give you an idea. The one thing I didn't like about the ice weapon that I had, and the other thing, was that it took ammo. So it took ammo, it took energy to use its specials. It was a little bit frustrating. But Frost seemed very powerful, so maybe I'll go back and check Alchemist out. But let's take a look at Bodyguard really quickly. Let's just kind of fly through this. We're going to skip through some of this, you know, cutscene stuff. First, graphically, it's, you know, it's passable. It looks nice. I think the character model is cool. Its animations are pretty decent. Like, you get the feeling that you're this, you know, mechanical thing. There's a lot of good sound that goes with it. When you start looking off into the distance, I do feel like the graphics kind of take a little bit of like a hit. They look good, but it's nothing incredible. But it also, it's not like you look at it and you're like, oh, it looks awful. It's good. It's fine. Animation wise, I think the animations are okay. They all have this kind of weightiness to them. You can see it has that kind of like janky feeling moving for these automatons. The agility weapons are a little smoother with attacks, but some of them still have pretty long combos. So let's take a look at the combo here. You can see it's got some good movement. It's a little slow, and then you also have like a power attack, which you can fully charge up. You'll notice I have a stamina bar, which drains pretty quickly. It recharges after a little bit of time, and when it's in that red state, you can take a little bit of ice damage to cool yourself off. I guess that's a neat mechanic. It's not bad. You get special abilities. So when you hold L2, in my case, because I'm using a PS5 controller, you do something related to the weapon. So this one, in this case, I block. Apparently, my weapon is a stack of papers. I guess it's paper rollers. It's kind of cool. The weapons are pretty thematic. Some of them are a funny theme like that, and others are, you know, like there's also the agility fan, and others are just like basic weapons like a halberd or, you know, like a literal gun. So, you know, it depends on how creative they were feeling. All the weapons I've tested are pretty good. The one negative is that a lot of them seem to drain stamina pretty heavily. So if they have like an attack special, oh, it looks like I get the fan anyways. That's pretty decent. Oh, this is a different fan. So this is like an attacker fan. I think I got this because I pre-ordered this game. But let's take a look at my stamina. Look at me use a special. And yeah, that's a pretty hefty use. Early on, that's pretty rough because you're just completely helpless if you run out of the stamina. Obviously, that's, you know, how most Souls games go. But these specials are pretty powerful when they hit. They tend to stun enemies or, you know, do something fairly useful. There are ranged style weapons. This one's got a little bit of range. I found it was getting me hit more often than not. But this one also has a special attack where it like throws a discus. It's helpful, but honestly, I felt more comfortable doing melee. Let's see how strong I feel. So you can jump, you can dodge, you can do all that. So let's just look at this basic enemy. These basic enemies can do something called malfunction sometimes, where they kind of swing their weapon and they don't really hit anything, and not because you're dodging really well, which is pretty helpful. You might notice a little lag in the gameplay here and there. For one, the game's not very well optimized, and a lot of people have complained about that. I've been fairly lucky, so it's run decently. I've had a few hiccups here and there, but I can at least give you an idea of what the game's like. I do encourage you to wait for it to be fixed. All right, let's see how strong my hits are here. Well, immediately you can kind of see one of the issues that I have with this. Maybe you saw it. The game encourages me to attack, right? And that's good. But in the middle of my attack, like maybe my second or third hit, the enemy just immediately, even though I'm using a heavy weapon, I wasn't sure this was going to happen this time, even though I'm using a heavy weapon, the enemy just immediately strikes through and does damage. And that kind of sucks because you have these beautiful looking weapon combos. I mean, like, you know, you have 1, 2, 3 hits there. I think it's a 3-hit combo. Let me try this. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So 3 hits on this weapon. Some have more than that, like the agility weapons. Now, what I just did there was not a parry. That was just a guard. I timed it. I don't know if timing it matters. But I try to time it to be close to where a parry would be because there's some weapons whose weapon specials are parries. You cannot just parry out of the box unless you have a weapon that allows you to do so. The special move is kind of what dictates what you can do. You can always, of course, evade, and evading seems better most of the time. I'll explain that more in a second. Let's just go through a little bit of gameplay. I'll talk a little bit. You have your chemical flask, which in this case is oil. You have charging attacks. You do have jumping attacks, but they're definitely not as good as Elden Ring jumping attacks because you don't come right back down and you can get punished pretty heavily for, taking to the air. I did a cool drop-down attack there, but I still got hit. Generally, the problem I run into with this game is most of the time your combat will look like the following. Let me draw this guy out. Even with agility weapons, my attacks were pretty much just like this. You wait for the enemy to do something, you strike once, you move back. Now, it doesn't always turn out that you have to do that. Like there, I overcommit it. I might as well take the second hit. Now, when I block, it does recoil the enemy, which is helpful. Let's see if I just hold block, if it's different. No, the enemy still recoils off. Now, the first boss I fought, that was actually working. So I felt like, okay, I get some stamina drain. I meant to like eat a hit, open them up, maybe take 2 hits, and then move away. Because the third hit was usually a bad idea, unless I thought it was going to kill the thing quickly enough. And that felt pretty good. But then I fought another boss that had heavier attacks. In my utter hubris, I tried to block. And what happened? Well, he broke through the block, did damage to the block, and ate through my stamina as well. Kind of felt kind of shitty. On that same boss, I switched weapons, and I was able to parry that same attack. So I could parry it, negate the damage entirely, do damage back. So obviously that's the better choice. Now, it's harder to parry, of course. But why even have the block ability if it's going to fail? It kind of feels silly. It works on some normal enemies, but it's kind of inconsistent because even later, I was fighting another enemy, which was just like an elite style enemy with like 2 wrecking ball arms. And when I tried to parry his wrecking balls, well, I think I parried the first hit, but he just keeps spinning, so he just hit me anyways, and I took a ton of damage and didn't really get anything out of it. So it kind of makes you feel like, okay, so blocking and parrying are pretty punishable. This would work if the enemies had a more clear indication of what kind of attack they were doing. Maybe if they glowed red for a split second, so you understood, okay, that was a sneak attack. So if you understood, okay, this is like a power attack, you can't block this. Or this is an unparryable, unblockable attack, you can't do anything to it but dodge. I think they need to indicate that to the player to really make it feel successful, and to really make it have a flow state where you can really kind of get into it and understand what's happening. Now, I could look at the enemies doing their attacks and assume, like, okay, that's a wrecking ball, I probably can't block that, even though it's kind of like, well, why do I even have a shield? Like, I'm a machine, I should be, stronger than your average bear, I guess. But oh well. When I do consider that, though, it's like, okay, fine. That's the way they're going to play it. So dodging is a little more useful. A little bit of a shame, but something important to know. Now, I don't know if perhaps you can improve your shield. Maybe if you level up the weapon, it improves the shield. It doesn't mention it. You can level up a weapon, but it doesn't say like if it improves the block or not that I've seen. It's possible that it does. But parries worked more efficiently, and so my level 1 weapon could parry a boss attack while my level 1 shield couldn't, so that felt a little frustrating for me. But yeah, so I do think it's a bit of a waste too with the really nice animations that you can only really do 1 or 2 hits before it's kind of unsafe. And then if you dodge, you do a strike after doing a dodge. If you charge, as in you hold down the run button and you attack, it's a different attack. Now you might notice some of the animations are a little janky when they come out. They feel okay. I just did the rapid cooling so you could see it. They feel okay, but I do notice some drops in quality here and there. It's nothing terrible, but this is your bonfire. It's where you can do upgrades. Now here's something where I was a little annoyed. I couldn't really look up what all these attributes meant, and I did look through some different menus. My understanding, vigor seems to be your crit, engineering seems to be your defense, like your armor, as well as how effective certain attacks are. I'm not sure which for certain weapons, probably like gun weapons. Elemental alchemy is for anything that has elemental effects on it, of course. It also gives you resistance to those same things. Agility seems to affect your ability to immobilize things, which is when you kind of stun them after hitting them enough. I don't think it actually improves your speed of attack, but it does, of course, scale with agility weapons. Power is for power attacks. Not for power attacks, for power-based weapons, so heavy weapons. And impact seems to knock things down. Durability just seems to be your typical like vitality or vigor stat, which gives you some health. And then, ironically enough, vigor is not like your HP, but it's your stamina, your endurance. So that's what I've come to understand. I don't know any other hidden interactions, but that's what that is. Modules are basically like rings in Elden Ring. You can put different things in there which modify your combat a little bit. You can upgrade these, so you can put higher level modules in. I don't have a lot of them in my full gameplay, my full game, so I can't tell you too much. These two things basically just cover how strong your Estus is, or your healing. You can buy things in the boutique, which, you know, nice name for it. You can get like various, you know, attack-based items. You can get equipment. It looks like you can buy lesser spirits, which means you could trade in your souls, or whatever it's called, your anima essence, which is souls. You can trade those in, so you can have them be a little safer, rather than carrying them with you if you really wanted to. You can buy certain weapons, so if you're like, oh, I made a bad choice, you could get one of these other ones and test them out. It looks like it's all the starter ones. You can buy some modules, so you can see this one just increases your armor and your balance when your health is at its lowest, which, you know, if you want to do that risky gameplay, you can do that. So yeah, there's a lot of content there. You can change your equipment here, but you can also change your equipment elsewhere. Let's throw a hat on, because it's, you know, I saw the little glowy thing. My hat is still hidden because I have that setting on. All right, but let's continue. So let's go a little forward. So again, this thing actually has a little range, so its aerial attacks are a lot better than one of my other weapons were, I have to admit. So maybe aerial attacks can work with certain weapons. For my shorter range agility ones, I'm just going to heal to do that again, just test it. My shorter range agility ones, it didn't really pay off that well. So, you know, your mileage may vary. It looks like you want to be a certain distance. Let's look at the blocking again. So yeah, you can see it does cause them to recoil. Sometimes they attack right away, sometimes they don't. But if you get impatient like I did there, and you just start trying to wail again, it always seems that's when they choose to attack. Now, I also had a problem with how little hit stun the enemies really have. It seems like they can recover a lot. So let's just go up to this guy and just keep wailing and see what happens. So he gets stopped there, doesn't get stopped there, doesn't get stopped there. Basically, if you go up to an enemy and you start trying to just beat them down, it's not going to go well, which is standard affair for Elden Ring and for Souls games and for anything like that. So if you're used to that, it's not so bad. You just might be a little miffed like I am because of the animation stuff. All right, let's keep moving. Let's see if I can get us to that first boss. I'm going to just try and run and see what happens. Now, I didn't actually do this in my full playthrough, my playthrough that I was doing here before, because I just wanted to kind of get everything. There are chests, so I might actually end up regretting this right now. I don't think I actually died in my playthrough so far in the other one. So if I die right now, I guess I'll get to tell you what that does. Alright, I got myself a hat, got a grenade, and here I go. Grenades I found were very powerful, so items can be very useful. Alright, so I reset everything, I'm fine. Let's keep going. You can see that the old strategy of just run past everything is still in full effect here. I do have to be careful with my stamina, because it does go down pretty quick. My agility character definitely had a lot more to offer there. Can't go in there yet. This is still teaching me about locking on and everything. Of course, I already know that, so I'm just going to keep running. I mostly just want to see if I can show that first mini-boss off. So I can give you guys an idea of what that was like. Enemies seem to reset pretty quickly, so that's something worth knowing. It's obviously very linear, which is fine. I don't think it's bad if these kinds of games are linear. The visuals, like the areas are visually pretty. I think they do a pretty good job of that. They're pretty varied so far. I haven't been in two that felt, you know, too samey. So I'll give them credit for that. Oh. I wonder if I can actually pause. Yep, you can pause this game too, so if you care about that. But it looks like being in the menu while cooking stuff does not pause. Now, so far I don't think I've gotten a knockdown. I'm not sure. Okay, it looks like a power attack will knock him down. So that's kind of useful. So we can at least see that that works. I'm not sure what the proc rate is for knockdown as opposed to that stun effect the other weapons have. But again, this is like a quick overview just to give you an idea of what things are like. So that when you play it for yourself, you can decide what to do. Now, when I first walked in here, there were some other enemies around, and then the boss kind of spawned, and it was a little awkward because one of the enemies was just kind of running into the corner. There's this guy right here. I'm going to try and just knock him out early in the fight, and hopefully not die for it. Now, he didn't actually come out and try to kill me when I first fought this thing, but I didn't want to risk it because, you know, if you've played lots of Soul games, you know how that can go. So you can see the iframes available. I'm not sure how good they are. Let me see if I can try and time something to get an idea. It looks like you get a decent amount. Sometimes you can get clipped like I just did there. Blocking on this guy works. You see he actually does recoil for a second. Obviously not as efficiently as the other enemies. But it is enough to keep you going in the fight. Now, I do believe there are other enemies that I fought that are like this. They're just smaller in size. So I recognize his like attack pattern. He has like a gun that he can also use if you try to move far away, which obviously you don't want to get hit by. Just staying close seems to work. Oh, I'm out of stamina. And there's my punishment. Now, I don't have any other backup potions because I didn't neglect it to equip anything, so let's see how this goes. I might not survive this encounter, which is fine. Now you can kind of see some of the weaknesses though of this. Like, this isn't like a hard fight. If I really wanted to like take my time with it, you know, it wouldn't be the hardest thing to do. Also of note, let's see if I can just do this. You can just hoof it, and he will go back to his spot. So maybe I can game this a little bit, because they don't block you off from running away. So I'll take this potion. These potions, the basic oil, just heals you over time. So now I'm going to heal a little bit over time. I'll be able to take another hit. Let's run back in there. You'll see his health is still low. There's his shots. Now don't be fooled and pick up letters while you're in combat because they just carpet bomb your screen. Oh, I didn't expect to miss. Yeah, you can see weapons like that, like that's a lot of damage. But see, there's like kind of the punishment for like this weird waiting combat. It almost feels like the enemy sometimes is just waiting for you to do your attack to do theirs. Now, I'm not trying to let myself get led back there because I know there's an enemy that is like hovering around back there. Sometimes it's best to just take your time early on. As I got later, I got a little bolder, and I was doing more. Well, I guess I get to see what this looks like now. Okay, you just show back up. Yep, you lose all your souls as expected, and then you go back. I hadn't died before in my other one, so, you know, hey, we get to see that. But yeah, you can kind of see the cadence of the combat. Not terribly exciting. I'm sure that there are ways you could probably, like, take more risks, but really just for the purpose of showing you, I like to kind of give an idea of what it feels like the first time I fought that thing. Let's go back to the main menu and let's look at a character that's a little further ahead. And then I think we can conclude this kind of overview of what this is like. So here's my actual file, and it looks like I've been playing for about 3 hours and 10 minutes on that one, so not too long. Let's take a look at what is going on with that one. They have different equipment, and they're more agility focused. You'll notice I have a parry instead of a block. My offhand weapon is just these dual blades, which do good damage. They also have this like nice flowing, cool attack, which is very pretty and very dancer-like. I have a few more charges of my oil. My attacks are more speedy, and I've been, you know, practicing with this one a little more. You can see the areas are pretty cool. Like this is a workshop area you go to. I just finished killing a boss and coming back here and talked to some human guy. And the next event is going on. So I opened up this area, and I forget exactly where I have to go. So that is always nice when you forget. But thankfully there is a compass you can use, which points you in the direction you're supposed to go. Oh, I'm just supposed to literally ride a carriage. Okay, before I do that, I might give us a little glimpse into some new content. yeah, you can see the areas look kind of nice. Some of it looks a little grubby. The graphics, once they get fixed, once it's a little bit cleaner and once it's more optimized, might be a little bit better. You do run into the typical cheap setups of Souls things where, like, there's someone shooting at you. You can see that guy up there on that balcony just firing shots. He's like the same spear guy we were just looking at before that I died to as a boss. Meanwhile, this other guy's around here, and you're supposed to kind of fight him while fighting the other guy. See that white thing that's filling up on the enemy? That's the immobilization. So that's, the agility weapon's like stun gauge. Obviously, it builds up pretty quickly on basic dudes, but on harder enemies, you're not going to get it to do that much. You build up a lot if you manage to get a parry. Of course, parries are not always the easiest thing to get, and sometimes it's hard to capitalize on them a lot. But they're not so bad. You can see it's a fairly generous window. Now, I've gotten a little bit better at fighting certain enemies, so you can attack a little bit more. But when you're first fighting them, you don't really want to risk it. I tend to pause after that first strike, and I see if the enemy looks like they're going to do one of their, strike backs or not. I tend to play more defensively, but maybe when you get higher level, you can do more chain attacks. I'm not sure how that'll work for heavy weapons. I'm starting to find that I can do that at a later level, but at the beginning, it was like one hit, block, one hit, block. Let's take a look at some of the other weapons I have, so you guys can get an idea of what else is available, because I don't have everything. You can see I have like a fire chain. I have this weird like stopwatch thing called the Wheels of Vengeance. This is like a pretty unique looking weapon. I'm not sure if I am not statted enough to use it properly, or if it's supposed to be that slow, so let's just test it out on a basic enemy. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but I tend to like to look at different weapon attacks, get an idea of what they're like. I'm probably going to get beat up a little bit trying to like mess around with this while trying to dodge a guy shooting at me, but So yeah, this just seems like a kind of slowish weapon. Maybe my stats aren't good enough for it. It does hit pretty hard though, and the knockdown does seem nice. So perhaps knockdown is something more powerful than I gave it credit for. This one also seems to have a parry on it. Of course, getting used to a new parry is always a little difficult. So let's take a look. So you get like a fire parry. Oh, that's kind of cool. And fire does some damage over time. You can see that happening there. Obviously, if you stack more of it on there, it tends to be a little better. So this weapon is actually not that bad. I can't say I'm usually a fan of the big, slow things that don't look very impressive. But I do like the fire. And it's not like I've leveled up that weapon, so it's not particularly, like, great. But, yeah, this is not bad. I feel like this is one of those things where, like, the better I got at it, the more... the more I understood the enemy's attack patterns and how they have, like, that kind of mechanical delay, it gets a little easier to kind of time things and understand how many hits you can get. It seems like the more you invest into certain weapons, or the better weapons you get, the more you can actually use their combo. At least that's going to be my theory from just looking at this one, because I recently picked it up. Whereas the early weapons, it just kind of felt like I was doing things and not really getting much out of it. Let's take a look at this musket weapon really quickly, and then we'll do a... we'll move forward and see what's next, and then just kind of give you an idea of like a different zone. So some weapons do have range. I'm always going to get hit by that first attack. I'm just trying to draw this guy out. But you'll notice that I have these little dots that are on my bottom left corner. I just tried to point to my screen on the bottom left corner, which there's a gun, there's a shield icon because it has a block, not a parry. And then there's those little dots, which dictate how many shots I can do rapidly. So you'll see they're going down right now. And there's also a number underneath it, which is also my ammo. I'm not sure why they felt the need to do ammo and element, like these little elemental things. It's a little bit annoying. Because look, if I just keep shooting... I have no alchemical capsules, so I can't shoot. But I have 72, and I'm still using them. I feel like maybe the recharging one should have just been free shots. Because it kind of sucks to run out of ammo. It's not particularly super powerful, although freeze is nice because you do get an opening on the enemy. So that part of it is kind of cool. This thing also has a power attack, which is like a shotgun blast. And then when something's frozen, you can just go up to it and get interrupted by the other enemy. And then just kind of make easy work of it. So freezing things is kind of like an easy mode thing, but you really don't want to do that right away because then you don't learn enemies, and then it gets more frustrating later. I've gotten kind of good at fighting these guys because, you know, I know their pattern a bit more, and I also know this weapon pretty clearly with it. But yeah, let's take a look at a cutscene so you can get an idea of that. And then I'm going to give my final thoughts in my review on what I've done so far. And if there's anything you'd like me to include in these videos, please leave a comment about it, because maybe I can get some ideas. I know it's very stream of consciousness, because it's meant to just be me going on about what I think about something. Again, we can kind of see a little bit of like pixelation in the eyes there. I don't know how clear it is to you on this video, but you know, some of the like this face here doesn't look that great graphically, but for some reason like the PC usage and like the chugging effect of the video can be a little rough. I do feel like the game could definitely be better optimized. So I definitely understand the negative reviews about that. My computer just happens to be able to handle it pretty decently, even while running OBS. And yeah, there's a bunch of letters that pop up. Sometimes they're in zones where you're fighting and you have to hold a button to get rid of them. They don't pop up this big, but that can be kind of annoying. Machines killing everything in sight. Here's typical, like, someone's doing some politicking. It looks like this will let me travel. Let me switch my offhand weapon. I'm going to try this Wheel of Vengeance. I kind of liked it. Having some knockdowns might be useful. So let's see. Are there any upgrades that I can do to show anything else off? Not really. You can see how stats change. Let's see if there's anything said about special moves. So on special moves, this counterattack gets a higher impact value. It gets higher immobilization value and higher flame damage. But it doesn't really tell me if it gets a better, you know, like a better defense on it. Let's see. This other one, parry timed right versus the effect, blah, blah, blah. It just increases the impact, the damage, immobilization. And I'm pretty sure with the fan, which had a shield, it's going to be the same. Oh, it doesn't even change the shield. So there's no upgrade effect to that. So yeah, the block, I feel, is kind of like not that valuable, unless it scales with some stats. But I don't know. And you might say, oh, well, didn't you check? Well, we can take a look. Oh, okay, so we get to use this nice map, which I do think is well designed. And we can go to a certain spot. So where do I want to go? I don't know. Let's see what the correspondence mentions. Machines, it doesn't really say anything specific. I assume we're going to have to go everywhere, so let's just go to here. Oh, it tells me that's the main quest. Oh, so it's just 2 different spots with main quests. So I haven't had to deal with this before, so that's kind of cool. I didn't know there was a travel system. So hey, you know, you get to see the 3 hours in or so, which, you know, I'm not the fastest progressor. You get to go places. You know, we're not leaving tracks in the mud or anything with the graphics, so, you know, again, this isn't something that's like super crazy AAA. I'm not actually aware of how big this studio is, but I think it looks good. I mean, I think, again, optimization, but things are pretty, and you're not really focusing on that in this kind of game. As we load in, I should probably wait because there'll probably be a cinematic. But after we see whatever cinematic there may be, or if I just get, you know, unceremoniously dumped in the mud, I'll just give a brief overview of what I think about this game, who should get it, and some weaknesses. Oh, I didn't get dumped in the mud. Okay, and let's just take a look at the zone. They actually bothered putting some detail back there, which is nice. There's some nice steam sounds going on. There's a cool city, very Bloodborne-esque in its feel. So, okay. I've given you a little review, I've shown you some content, I've shown you some combat, which are things that I think are always important when you're judging a game, not just the cinematics and art style. So, put my controller down and hopefully not get butchered by something, although I see a guy patrolling in the distance. So this game, if I had to rate it out of 10 right now, I'd give it probably a solid 6. where I consider a 5 like an average playable game where, you know, everything works and it's good, but, you know, it's kind of like a junk food good where it's like, yeah, you know, you might really like it or it might not really be worth your time depending. So it's all right. You don't need it. It's not something to write home about, but it's decent. That's my 5 score. For 6, I think that's when it has a little bit more of a specific niche that it fits or more specific value it brings. In this case, I think the setting is pretty cool. I do like that they bother with all these little animations. Like you can see like the clockwork working in the back of my character here. I'm gonna pick my controller up. You know, they have different equipment. The setting is cool. It might be heavily Bloodborne inspired. It might be heavily steampunk inspired from other things. But what isn't inspired by something? It plays well, and that's really what matters. So I won't give it higher than a 6, though, because of performance issues that many people have experienced, and even performance issues on my hardware, which is not like a slouch. I usually play things on very high, and this thing was trying to set me to a lot of medium settings, and it clearly is having trouble despite the fact that it's not the most impressive game I've ever played on my system. I do think that they made some choices that feel more like because they were copying Souls, it became a problem. I think it would be better if this was a little bit more focused on having more fluid combat, because the movement is just so cool. I mean, look at this full like animation. You get those twisty claws. That's so nice. Like even this slow weapon, it has this cool little twists on the weapon, but it's such a slow attack chain that, and it drains so much stamina that I feel like only really later in the game are you really going to get to enjoy that. So, you know, to me, that's a little bit of a drawback. A lot of the enemies, though, are thankfully not super fast. The parry windows are pretty generous. You get new things every area you go to, and there's new weapons and new gear and new armor. They seem to kind of give it to you in a specific way where, you know, they'll give you a chest piece and a hat and then the legs and the boots later, and they have different focuses, like they might give you more endurance or they might do something else. And you can, of course, level up your character as you go. I do think they could be a little bit more clear on that, because even when I went into my statistics, it's not like you can really look into what these things specifically do that I could find, unless there's a button push that I don't know. Even in the codex, I was kind of looking around in there the other time. You can see there's some entries that are, of course, not been looked at because I didn't look at every single enemy that popped up. I looked at the guide, and when I was looking there, I'm going to go quickly scroll through it, and I didn't really see anything that specifically went over those stats. So it kind of just was guessing on those. So I think that's a little bit of a problem when you have all these kind of weirdly named stats, especially if they're just meant to be thematic. You should really tell your players what they're doing and give them a little bit more of an idea. You can kind of figure it out, though. I'm pretty sure my read is somewhat accurate. But, you know, still, it's one of those things where, like, I would have appreciated that. I think the game is one of those games where you should wait maybe a few months for some patches, some optimization to come out, for more thorough reviews. I'll do a more thorough, like, overview once I beat the game, and I'll talk about it some more. But I think if you really love your Souls games, if you're really, like, you know, you're chomping at the bit, you're scratching at your neck saying, oh, I need that next Elden Ring patch. I need more DLC. I need a Souls game. I think you'll find some comfort here. It's familiar. It doesn't do anything too different, but that means it's pretty decent. It's okay. It's like junk food. You'll enjoy it if you like this kind of junk food. You'll enjoy it. It's not the highest of quality, but I do look forward to seeing more from the developer, and I'm definitely going to play through this game because it's fun enough to have me, well, keep coming back and care about it. Well, that's about it. If you have any specific questions, if maybe you have a build idea you want to try, if you want me to look into something more, if there's a game you want me to cover that's coming out, please let me know. I will be doing quite a few things coming up. I know there's a new, not Valkyrie Profile, but a new game in that series coming out. I know there's a new Star Ocean coming out. I will be trying those out as they release. And I'll do some other videos in the intern. I'm also going to talk about Freedom Planet 2 pretty soon, because I really like that game. It came out just recently. I'll put up a first look at that soon as well. But all right, everyone, that's it. Take care.